I'm Martha Morris. I started in credit unions in actually 1975. I was working at Willamette Mills at the time. It was a plywood plant, and I was working for United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Journers at the time, a local union there. So I became an officer, and being an officer, we would always have meetings on what would be best to help the people of the local union. So when it came about someone forming a credit union, well, I was one of the ones who said, well, I don't think I'm going to do that, but that's really, really good, because at the time, mostly men worked at the plant. It was just three of us ladies. But anyway, because of the accounting background and working for other businesses, even helping begin some business, helping with their bookkeepings and things like that, it was almost like you gotta help us get the credit union started. So I was one of the founders of United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Journers Credit Union. Well, in the meantime, we grew. We went to all, at that time, paper mill, wood mills, things like that was booming all over the northern area here. So we went from plant to plant, signing up persons to be members of the credit union. Well, the credit union had to have a location. The plant manager said, we will go along with you. You can sign up as many members you have. We would not have anything to do with it, but you got to have your own facility. But we will support you in pushing people your way. So that's the way the credit union began, in my home, right in my living room. We designated my living room as, we said UBC Credit Union. Well, in 1988, the board of directors at some of the persons that was on the board of directors at Grambling Federal Credit Union, they had contacted me and they wanted to talk with me. So when they came, and like I said, my living room was the office. When they came to my office, they started talking to me about some of the issues that Grambling Credit Union was having, and they had worked so long. It was one of your older credit unions here in North Louisiana, and they kept talking, and it was so persistent that I said, well, maybe I will help you out for a little while. Later on, the chairman and the of the board and the co-chairman, they visit me again, and they asked me, said, don't you know Coach Rob? I said, yes, I do. They said, well, we talked to him, and he knows you real well. So I was modest, because Coach Robinson, he always had all the respect of the people. That was, anyone that knew him had respect for him, and I had family members to play football. So after they mentioned him, and I did talk to him briefly, and he said that he thought that I would be a good asset for them. He said, you're coming from a neutral party. He said, you've seen several sides, and he said they could get along with you. So in doing that, when Dr. McIntosh was the chairman of the board, when he came back and he spoke to me again, I said yes. Well, when I went to the credit union and looked around and started getting deeply involved, one of the problems that they had was we were not able to compete, because regardless of the CD, whatever we paid on interest, the neighboring town, which would be Ruston, the banks there could always go up higher to get, we say, the cream of the members, because we need that money to make loans. And we were one of the ones that we made minimum loans, because at a certain time we could not make any loans. because you had to have that money coming in on the savings side in order to make the loans. So competition we could not compete with checking accounts, all of the major products that was needed to keep any business strong. So when the regulators came in, we were making some loans. Then when people start almost like taking members from you, well, some of those would choose, well, we will pay the credit union last, and we're going to get this big loan over here. And we found and started looking at the business, why was the delinquency rising? We found that was to be the case. Well, in order to start combating that, the board of directors started looking at ways, what are we going to have to do? The regulators was looking at us, was giving us a chance to, and we started talking about what was the problem that Grambling had, that they had to find a solution to. We found that when you're not able to compete and you don't have the resources coming in, that you need to find someone that believes in what you believe in serving people, to find a merging partner that could help the credit union and help the community. And that's what we needed most. I had been going to school with Helen for all these years. We would take classes and different things together, study for our certification and things of that nature. So I already knew her. I knew what she was doing over here because we would share information. I called her up one night and I asked her, would you be interested in merging Grambling? She said, Grambling is in trouble? I said, Grambling is in trouble. We can't compete. I said, we are trying to maintain, but you got to have different resources. I said, what I see is happening is, and you talk about segregation and all of these different things, what I see is that Grambling professors, the people in the community, they're being cherry picked to pull away from Grambling. I said they're offered more percentage point. They offered loans that we cannot make. And I said, that is what's happening to Grambling. And I said, I don't see it getting better until we can really show the people that we can make the difference. And also show our competitors that we can do this. So there was other credit union lined up because they wanted Grambling, because there was a lot of money in Grambling. Grambling itself, if you drove around it, you didn't find a lot of poverty in that area because of the school. And so when Helen started asking questions, when I referred Dr. McIntosh, Dr. Copeland, who is the president of the board now, when I referred them to Helen Godfrey, at that time she was Helen Godfrey, where she was able to talk to them how she came in and made a difference in Smeeko Credit Union. When they heard her speaking, when we started looking at the people that was being served, it did not matter where you came from, who you were, it was people serving the people. Then they came back and brought back to the board, and not only to the board, because we had credit committees, supervisory committees. They impact those committee persons first and the board of directors. When the chairman impact them, and then brought she's Mrs. Smith now in, well, that was it. That was it. And when they started wanting to use Coach Robertson's name to try to get the credit union, with Coach Robertson knowing me, and when I told him what was happening, and then he started putting it together because he had been visited by some of the others. Then he said, oh, no way. He said, I have brought you here. He said, I can't give the credit union up. And when he went to Dr. McIntosh, and he told Dr. McIntosh what he knew, and they started getting together, Dr. McIntosh said, we have already chosen someone. So he even wanted to know who was, and I told him, I said, it's Shreveport Federal Credit Union. He said, that's the one you was telling me about? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know, he said, I like that idea. He said, we started from nothing, and we're proud of who we are. He said, the only thing I ask, do not lose your identity. And Mrs. Smith came in and she told the board, she said, you will not lose your identity. And now you could say Grambling Credit Union, they say Shreveport Federal Credit Union. And that's what happened. It was a beautiful relationship. A lot of productivity came out. People were being served. People were able to get the checking accounts like they were supposed to. If someone came in and said, well, your car, we will make you a loan for this car, but you're going to do 10. Mrs. Smith will come in and say, look, our credit union can beat that. That's competition, and that's being able to serve your people and giving them the best deal possible. Whereas just Grambling alone could not do that. But when the two came together, oh, I tell you, everything changed. It seemed like God himself put his blessings upon the credit union in order to serve all the people.
So when you mentioned kind of keeping that identity, in what ways sort of like how did that play out? What are the ways in which it sort of still has that independent identity?
We can always use the Grambling name. So we say the Grambling branch of Shreveport Federal Credit Union, and yet the people do not mind saying the Grambling branch. We say the Grambling branch. We are branch accounting. So if we need to do numbers, we can always say, in this branch, this is what you accomplished. And that was the key way of keeping the identity. Because the Grambling name also had a lot of power behind it and a lot of respect behind it. So if you go even below Ruston, in Formersville, down in Dubois, even to Monroe, when you say Grambling, people, you had their attention. And now, when we say Shreveport Federal Credit Union, the Grambling branch of Shreveport Federal, they know we won. So that name recognition was very, very critical and very important to the people in the Grambling community.
And how has that played out in terms of the like governance? So like the board of directors.
The board of directors, the chairman of the board is from Grambling, but it was through his commitment to the credit union work. He's not always been. The one thing that Shreveport Federal Credit Union does is they reach out in all of those areas, and they're going to make sure that there are representatives if on the board or on a committee, and not just on a makeup committee, but someone that impacts the credit union. So that's the reason you find that when there is a merger, that the people not only buy into it, but they feel like family. It's because they have representatives to represent them.
And so so that particular community, there's the members in that branch tend to know, okay, I have a concern or something that I feel like really needs to be addressed. There's someone from their branch they can go to. And
not only do they feel like they can go to someone in that branch now, but they also know that the president, CEO care enough about them that if you go in any branch, you can see her picture. If you have a problem or a concern, call me. And you don't find it. That's just an unknown. And write me. She even have it on the website. So she has an open door policy which make all the members, regardless of what branch they're coming out of, they'll pick the phone up and call her even at home. And so that's what has grown this credit union. Her being able to reach and letting the member know that she cares. Sometimes when unfortunate things happen to members in areas, and they already know that they're going to need to talk to the president, CEO. They're going to need to talk to a representative. The representative know that since she has such a big heart and she knows areas and she can create things, they're going to refer the members to her. And when she started giving her number out, I am so surprised she had to turn her phone off, because the members are going to call. They call at home. They see her at church. She goes speak. They see her. When you have a touchable leader that we feel like care about our needs, and I say our because not only am I an employee, but I'm a member. When you have someone that feel like that they care about you enough, that's where you're going to, and she give you access to her, you building in that loyalty, you're building in that reputation, you building in that relationship. And that's what make credit union strides much more than most financial institutions.
So one other question I have, so when you were running the first credit union out of your living room,
yes,
were you at that point you were working and that was like a volunteer thing on the side, or were you, like, how much of your time did you spend running the credit union versus doing all your other stuff?
Started out as a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as a volunteer, and what I had promised to do, that I would help get the book set up, I would help get everything, get the committees organized. I would do all of those things. And I said, well, I'll give you 2 or maybe 3 years. And, I'm sure then you can do it on your own. I was young, had a family, used to going. But I wanted to work, so I worked. But when it was that vacation time, I really wanted to get away. And I found that you started loving it so much and being more committed to it, that you start working at night. You go to your first job in the day, you come home, you work that job. The first thing I did was set up time that the members could actually come to my home. And we would actually publicize that, and they would come from all directions. It would always be somebody out there in the driveway waiting to that time that they felt like I would be opening the door. So with the family, and one advantage that I had was my children were small, so they all grew up in a credit union, and my husband got accustomed to it because he was self-employed. So, it was just work. But having the credit union there, learning the history of the credit union, learning what it was supposed to do, it just went hand in hand with things that I had been taught at such an early age about helping people. We didn't have the bartering system. You had to pay your loan back, but to be able to say, a person come and say, well, my wife is going to go in the hospital and she's going to have a baby, and we need this and we need that, to just make the small loan. I remember when we could not do anything but $200 in loans. And it grew from there. The first $200, the second $200, then $500. We thought we were really somebody. But it brought a cohesiveness for the people and a pride that this is my money that I'm putting in, and I can borrow my money. I remember the philosophy, if you can save just $5 out of your paycheck, that's what we would promote, $5 out of your paycheck. And we had a man that was, he had gotten hurt on the job, but he had been on the job for probably about 25 years. He could not believe he had more than $5,000 in the credit. He said, ma'am, you must have made a mistake. But that was the teaching of the credit union. Put your money in every paycheck and look at it grow. Watch your money grow. Those are things that you don't forget. Those are some of the things that we got away from that caused some of the problems too in our country. Just saving a little bit. But now we are going back to the basics because a lot of us are seeing that really works.
And then what eventually sort of happened to that credit union when you moved on?
It's still functioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small credit union. It is still functioning. They still have some of the plants that did not close down. Some of the plants are still open, and they are still functioning. But it's not in my home. It is now in the post office. Yes, still functioning.
And so, any other thoughts or stories on the experience of kind of having gone through the merger process? And was that really when you transitioned from sort of being in a more volunteer role to really sort of having credit unions being a career?
Yes, I knew after about 6 or 7 years that this is what I wanted to do because of the nature of what credit union was founded for. I didn't know anything else that could impact people as much as credit unions could do, because the most things that unbanked, underbanked, poor, or anyone else, we always had that common denominator: we needed money. Having access to money has always been the most important thing in feeding our families, having dreams of owning homes, buying cars. Home always was the ultimate thing that everyone wanted to own. I find that I'm in the best role that God could have placed me in. Watching my parents when they would kill a hog, kill a cow, kill chickens. Everybody would join in and they would help clean and get this meat processed, and everybody got a piece of it. Everyone would get a piece. Something happened to your roof. Somebody down the street may be a carpenter. They would come and they would do this. My dad had a big field. They called it a patch. We said it was a field. And he would raise different things. They do this. Well, they needed some corn. They needed okra. He said, go on out there and get you a couple bushel of peas. That is the way that we helped each other growing up. So then when I got into credit union and I saw how we could actually benefit the people, did not matter who they were, but you could really benefit people if you could give them access to money.
And so in many ways it was like the same ethic of that kind of earlier sort of neighbor helping neighbor, but with money rather than with favors.
Exactly. And when you start reading the stories and learning the history of the credit union, how the farmers put their money together because they could not go to banks. When you have that same concept and you bring that concept here, make it work, and you can see it work, it gives you a sense of pride to say, you know, it really still works. The basics still work. Some things change, but you can't get too far from your basics. That's what I learned about this.
And from your perspective, are there any sort of big changes that you have seen in the time that you've been that you either think make you hopeful or make you concerned, or what's your sense of where the movement is now?
One of my basic concerns now is continue to train and teach people how to manage their money. Oftentimes, people come in contact or they have money, but they do not utilize it to the best that they should be. And oftentimes, it's a lack of knowledge about what should come first. How do you make a budget? How do you live by that budget? How you can wait on those wants and take care of the needs. I see that today still as a challenge, more of a challenge, because our young people, as they're coming along, oftentimes we're not actually transferring those work ethics like they should be transferred. And sometimes, and I'm guilty too, we do a little bit too much where they are not earning what they should be earning in order to build in and help build in that character that they need in order to survive. I also am concerned that more and more compliances are coming up on credit union, where it's taking the ability, character, self-worth, things of that nature out of the decision in making in doing loans for the people. I see as a concern that yes, people have abused some of the rules and regulations, but sometimes we over-regulate where you tie people's hands that really want to help people. Sometimes you tie their hands where you can't do anything. So if we're not careful enough, because of mistakes in the past, we will over-regulate the system where we can't help anyone. So the rich will continue to get richer and the poor will continue to get poor. So we have to have some kind of way, we have to have it where we can balance these rules and regulations and give some flexibility. Nothing wrong with regulations, nothing wrong with guidelines, nothing wrong with policies. But somewhere you have to have some humanness in these things in order to help the people. Because after all, everybody's not going to fit in the same box. So we have to be able to think and not act as if robots and just simply check this off, check this off, check this off, and you got it or you don't have it.